Agile and collaboration, the big buzzwords here at Agile 2015. Here in booth 420 from the exhibit forum with Dan Rawsthorne of 3Back. And Dan, we were talking yesterday about the history of Agile, your history. But today, let's talk about Agile in scale. In other words, there's this belief that Agile can solve many problems, but you were telling me that it takes more people and vision with smaller teams across the board to really make that a reality.
Yeah, it's kind of a universal thing, the object-oriented design, if you will. You want to have small, cohesive units that then interact appropriately and are relatively decoupled. And this is a general force that works for scaling agility, where you have lots of little teams. So how do you get them to work together? Scaling the collaboration we're talking about here, lots of little collaborations. How do you use that data in a combination? And this is the realization that EVA actually had that was very cool, that the large scale collaboration you need to help a large organization must be made up of a whole lot of little collaborations. And that's how it fits in with agility, because we've been doing the same thing. Large organizations have to be divvied up into little teams, just like large pieces of software have to be divvied up into little classes and modules. And so it's a universal thing.
What are the challenges with growing that?
Well, the challenges are not making the small things, that's hard enough, but that's doable. But how do you get them to interconnect without getting in each other's way? How do you make sure that they're all focused on the same thing? How do you make sure that they're talking back and forth in a way that they're not stepping on each other? And so that's where the differences lie, whether you're trying to build something, you don't want to step into each other's toes by having your code stomping on each other, or whether you have an organization that's divvied up and then you have to make sure there's some consistency across teams about how you do things, or the collaboration, making sure that we're all pulling in the same direction. So it's not so much the small teams that's the issue, it's what's the collaboration between them, what's the connections, what's the coupling look like?
What are the big pitfalls beyond just the scale proportion of that? Is Agile extensible in and of itself, or as you add more people, you're amplifying more of a potential problem?
Well, you always get more problems, and you also get more power, because you got more people or more stuff, and that's going to make you more powerful. But because there's more people and more stuff, you're going to get more impediments. So if you look at it, for example, I'm a scaling person, and if you're scaling an organization, you want to have a single focus, drive down into the organization, then you get lots of little realities happening. Agile is all about adapting to realities, and the realities have to filter back up somehow. Well, that's one problem. But so there's this up and down problem. Plans going down, reality coming up. There's an up and down problem. That's one problem. The other problem is to get in each other's way, which is a back and forth problem. So when you have these two things going on at the same time, and organizations are terrible at that, because they have a hierarchy that goes one way, and they don't have things going this way. So that's what we talk about here in the Agile Conference a lot, about how to make this happen.
And so, in regards with the Every Voice Engaged Foundation, how do you use this type of understanding and experience to solve the complex problems of cities and towns and government?
Well, Luke yesterday gave a great talk, and he said we had 200 people we were collaborating with, and that took 30 facilitators. So it wound up dividing into 30 little teams at a time. And then the facilitators have to get together and take all that information, that's the coupling. And then they take that information and try to synthesize it into the next game. And then you get another couple hundred people in playing, so you have an iterative process where you gather a lot of information, you synthesize it. You have a lot more teams deal with that information, you synthesize it. And so you have, what in Scrum we call sprints, with a review at the end of every sprint, and replanning every sprint. It's the same stuff, but it allows you to chew through a big complex problem by going like this, and instead of trying to do it all at once.
So it's like it's breathing almost.
It is, it is in a sense breathing. I like that analogy. If you think of the whole thing as being an entity with life, you eat a little while, you digest, you cook another meal, you eat, you digest, and you breathe and you move forward as an entity that is, bringing stuff in, chewing on it, spitting out the next version. I know it's a horrible analogy. And then moving forward constantly looking at what you just did, looking at a new group of folks to deal with it, and moving your way through. And
so when we talk, when we are talking about scale,
yes,
how big is the threshold for scale? What is a number of teams or organizational parameters that you would say this is bigger than the norm?
My own guess is there's no such thing. And the reason is my military background. I've been in combat with the U.S. Army Division, which is 15,000 people. And it goes all the way down to squads, which are 8 people. And what is that? 2,000 squads, roughly. I think it's like 1,500 squads and a whole lot of superstructure. And it gets in new reality every 6 hours and replans every 6 hours. And it has a lot of cross-cutting stuff going on, talking to each other. So everybody's in the loop all the time. And it's very difficult, and it's the reason what we now call C4I exists. C4I is about the mechanism that allows the information to go around. It is what allows it to breathe. But it's 15,000 people.
That's a lot of people.
That's gigantic. And there's one guy at the top, a 2-star general at the top. And there's, 8,000 fighters at the bottom. And in between is everybody who's making the collaboration work. So the collaboration gives you some significant overhead requirements. But when you're trying to do something that big, there's no other way to do it as far as I know.
Dan, it's always good to talk to you. Appreciate the wonderful experience and the conversation on scaling.
Thank you.